I'm Owen Gingerich. I'm Professor Emeritus of Astronomy and History of Science at Harvard University. I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were very helpful in encouraging my interests in astronomy even when I was a youngster. And I went to Goshen College, which is a Christian college in northern Indiana, which had a motto, culture for service. And that was very important in thinking about what I might do with my life. I had a remarkable opportunity while I was an undergraduate of getting a summer job at Harvard College Observatory, working as an assistant for Harlow Shapley, who was probably the most famous astronomer in America at that time. So when it came time to go to graduate school, I had an interesting decision. Culture for service. I was a chemistry major, and I could think of lots of useful things that chemists do. But astronomy struck me as being wonderfully useless. And one of my science professors said, but if you feel a calling to go to astronomy, you should give it a try, because we shouldn't let atheists take over any particular field. I didn't realize it at the time, but after I became professor of history of science and had undergraduate students working on various projects, one young man wanted to do his senior honors thesis on the relation of science and religion since World War II. And I discovered as a result of that, conservative Christians in America in the early part of the 20th century tended to be very suspicious of higher education. And following World War II, many of the church leaders realized that they were losing it because they didn't have people educated in a variety of scholarly disciplines who could speak authoritatively and from a Christian viewpoint. And so, unknown to me, I was part of the legacy of trying to have people go into different fields. So I went into astronomy, and I worked hard using a computer, writing unreadable papers, and so on. But in the late 1980s, I had an interesting opportunity. I was asked to give a lecture, the first in Dwight lecture at the University of Pennsylvania, on science and Christian faith. So I worked very hard on that lecture because I knew that there would probably be a lot of very conservative Christians in the audience. It was, in fact, a very broad audience. Those people and atheists and so on. It was very wide. I called that my pro-Christian anti-creationism lecture because I was interested in showing how the marvels of astronomy could be quite compatible with a metaphorical interpretation of Scripture, something that the Christian church had long maintained, but in two periods, one around the time of Galileo, and then in America, beginning early in the 20th century, a move towards a strict literalism, which runs into a lot of problems. So I've been working through that and trying to help people understand that, for example, as we understand God's creation, and we figure that God could have made the universe in many different ways, but the particular way that it appears that it has been made suggests that we wouldn't be here if the universe were not very, very old. Because out of the Big Bang came hydrogen and helium, but not the oxygen, the iron we need for our blood, and so on. Those things came in the interiors of giant stars, and it had to cook for long, long periods of time before we got those elements abundant enough for sustainable life. And so I think it's a marvelous picture, and that's what I am involved in telling people about.